Hello again and welcome to the news. My name is Jeffrey Ziambo. The headlines. The Law Association of Zambia LAS says any powers exercised by government under Article 31 must be used in accordance with the Bill of Rights. The Evangelical Fellowship of Zambia EFZ says the church is willing to facilitate political dialogue in the country. And the news in detail. The Law Association of Zambia LAS says any powers exercised by the government during the period of the threatened state of public emergency must be used in accordance with the Constitution and in particular in accordance with the Bill of Rights. LAS President Linda Kasonde has told a media briefing that the government does not have full emergency powers under a threatened state of emergency. She says the power to derogate from the rights in the Bill of Rights does not exist under Article 31, which relates to threatened state of emergency, and therefore powers under Article 31 must be exercised in compliance with the Bill of Rights. Ms. Kasonde says while President Edgar Lungu had the discretion to invoke Article 31, the question as to whether the circumstances cited for invoking Article 31 were justified can only be conclusively determined by a court of law. She adds that the government has no powers to extend the threatened state of emergency beyond the 3 months approved by Parliament. The LAS president explains that there is no power of extension under Article 31 as distinct from powers to extend that are available under Article 30.
Article 31(2) provides that a declaration by the President under Article 31 ceases to have effect on the expiry of 7 days from the date that the declaration is made, unless before the 7 days the declaration has been approved by the National Assembly. In this case, the declaration continues to have effect, having been approved by the National Assembly, subject of course to the court action we referred to previously. Following such approval, Article 31(5) provides that the resolution of the National Assembly will continue in force until the expiration of a period of 3 months, commencing with the date of its being approved until it's revoked on an earlier date. We note anxieties regarding how long the declaration of threatened state of emergency can last. This, in our view, cannot extend beyond 3 months, as there is no power of extension under Article 31, as distinct from the powers to extend that are available under Article 30, which relates to an actual state of emergency. In summary, President Lungu had the legal discretion to invoke Article 31. However, the question as to whether the circumstances cited for invoking Article 31 were justified.
Evangelical Fellowship of Zambia EFZ Executive Director Reverend Poguta Mwanza says the church is ready to facilitate political dialogue in the country. Reverend Mwanza has, however, noted the need for the church mother bodies to unite on common issues before seeking to reconcile others. He says the 3 church mother bodies must take advantage of the already existing unity and understanding among them to facilitate and foster peace and unity in the country. Reverend Mwanza has told Q News that there are a number of issues the church can deliberate on than merely issuing statements. He says the church should reflect holistically and broadly on issues affecting the country and prayerfully find amicable ways of addressing the challenges.
I think in the past we have had opportunities where the church mother bodies have addressed the issues of the country by bringing political parties together and providing for a common direction in terms of unity and reconciliation and mediation. We are aware of the 1991 challenge, but also more recent in 2016 at the Cathedral of the Holy Cross, just ahead of the elections in 2016, we saw the churches working together to bring politicians in order to forge a much better campaign environment that was going to be free and fair, and also to urge politicians to desist from acts of violence or even provocation. At the moment, I think that there are a number of issues that the church can deliberate on, not just in terms of issuing a statement, but perhaps in terms of reflecting holistically and widely, broadly on the issues affecting this country, and then from there prayerfully looking at how best can we address those issues. And one of the weapons that the church has is prayer. And prayer is a very important tool that we can use to allow God to soften the hearts of those that may be hurting or those who may be unwilling to forgive. So by using prayer, we are able to bring the country on its knees and ask God to intervene. And I think that by using prayer, it means that we can put a lot of spiritual dimension to the issues of policy influencing or directing the affairs of this country.
The Foundation for Democratic Process, FODEP, says the current political polarization is a threat to Zambia's democratic culture. FODEP Executive Director Mwenge Chimfembe says this has also contributed to political tension in the country. Mr. Chimfembe has since noted the need to deal with political rivalry to avoid more political tension, which he says could destroy the country's democracy. He has also urged government to address some of the laws that tend to hinder political competition. Mr. Chimfembe has cited the Public Order Act, which he says has maintained its character from the colonial times. Mr. Chimfembe says in order for the country's democracy not to be frustrated by the ambiguity in such laws, there is need to revisit them.
So, the sooner we begin to address this, the better. Of course, if you look at Article 60, which is giving rights to political parties to market themselves, rights to assemble, share ideologies freely, but yet in the Public Order Act, it is seem like the law, is subjective to a point where it is being abused. This is what we saw in all these successful governments, and this is what is being seen right now. So in order to ensure that we have a democracy that flourishes, one that is not frustrated by the ambiguity in such laws, there is need to revisit the issue of political competition, and also an appreciation by all the political actors that the law is supposed to serve all of them, regardless of who is in power and who is not. As we have mentioned, there is need to ensure that the level playing field, remains favorable for all, so that democracy, pluralism, all these, are not stifled.
The Human Rights Commission has commended President Edgar Lungu for demonstrating commitment to the spirit of dialogue as demonstrated by his gesture of meeting with the Zambia Conference of Catholic Bishops. Commission Chairperson Mudford Mwandenga says this is a clear indication that President Lungu is willing to engage in dialogue with the UPND leader Hakainde Hichilema. Mr. Mwandenga says it is encouraging that President Lungu is willing to provide the required national leadership to facilitate political dialogue in order to bring to an end the continued hostile political environment. He says the Commission believes that such a landmark decision may result into a peaceful resolution of the current political conflicts and enable the country to focus its energy and resources on improving socio-economic rights of citizens. Mr. Mwandenga has noted that the continued political hostility is endangering the maintenance of peace, law and order, as well as grossly undermining the promotion and protection of fundamental human rights and freedoms. He says Zambia, like many other great nations, has in the past relied on political dialogue to avoid slumping into political instability. The Commission Chairperson has emphasized that it is therefore encouraging that President Lungu has expressed commitment to keep Zambia's long-standing tradition of engaging in dialogue and recognizing the befitting role of the Church in brokering peace in this country. This is contained in a statement made available to Q News by Mr. Mwandenga and has since called upon various stakeholders, including the media fraternity, to desist from making statements or publications that have the potential to jeopardize the impending dialogue. The Young African Leaders Initiative YALI has described the United Party for National Development's decision to rescind its earlier position on dialogue as a major setback to the country's reconciliatory agenda. Last week, a statement purported to have been issued by UPND leader Hakainde Hichilema called for unconditional dialogue among political players, but UPND Secretary General Stephen Katuka has dismissed the statement, saying their incarcerated leader has at no time issued such a statement. Yali governance advisor Isaac Mwanza has told Q News that it would have been gratifying if the opposition party had gone ahead with a reconciliatory path. Mr. Mwanza says that the country can only move forward if the opposition and the ruling party are at peace with each other. Mr. Mwanza has, however, appealed to President Edgar Lungu to use his discretion through the Director of Public Prosecutions and release the opposition leader, as his capacity to heed to calls for dialogue are handicapped behind bars.
And the Catholic bishops, we feel that we have been taken aback as Young African Leaders Initiative. We have been calling for this dialogue for a long time, even before Mr. Hakainde Hichilema was incarcerated. And I think it is very important for the United Party for National Development to realize that the only solution to the problem that we actually have now, even which they have, the UPND, is to dialogue. So it will be very important that they should take the goodwill of the Catholic fathers, they should take the goodwill of the president to say that it is time for dialogue over these national issues so that we can move ahead as a nation. They shouldn't take the Zambian people for granted, and I think that the Zambian people want to move ahead. They're tired of seeing HH being incarcerated, they're tired of these court cases, and this is why on our part as Young African Leaders Initiative, we have called on the president and the entire executive to consider entering a NORE in the case of Hakainde Hichilema so that the man can come to a dialogue table with the same strength as the other party. As it is, yes, he's in prison, he's got no much strength. When someone is incarcerated, it means that you have reduced his strength to dialogue. So it will be very important that the executive, through the Director of Public Prosecution, must discharge Mr. Hakainde Hichilema. And immediately after the discharge, I think we must see dialogue take place so that
Government says Zambia is on the verge of eliminating fatal diseases like polio, among others. Ministry of Health spokesperson Dr. Kennedy Malama says the country has made great strides in its immunization program by making immunization available to all children. Dr. Malama says immunization has proven to be one of the cost-effective public health intervention programs that has saved millions of lives from childhood vaccine-preventable diseases. He says it is for this reason that government has developed an immunization surveillance plan and the budget for 2017 as evidence of efficient front-end planning outlining the vision of expanded program on immunization surveillance in Zambia. He says this will help articulate the annual framework and context, as well as critical factors and activities required to accomplish the surveillance mission. Speaking during an international workshop on immunization and surveillance plans review meeting in Lusaka today, Dr. Malama told the gathering that committees have been put in place to strengthen immunization service delivery system.
Zambia has developed an immunization surveillance plan and budget for 2017 as evidence of efficient front-end planning, outlining the vision and mission of EPI surveillance in Zambia. This plan articulates the annual framework and context, the key objectives and indicators, critical success factors and activities which are required to accomplish the surveillance mission. And I know during the next 3 days, you'll be able to give feedback not only on the Zambian work plan, but on each of the countries which is represented here. Just to stress that here in Zambia, we've embarked on what we've termed the transformation agenda, which is actually underpinned on strengthening health systems as we move towards universal health coverage using a primary health care approach. And this is serious business. As the WR said, we are focusing on strengthening health systems informed by the key building blocks. And just to give you an example of what we've done as a country, between last year, 2016, and this year to date, we've been able to recruit 9,000 health workers who have been placed in various health facilities with priority given to frontline in the rural and remote parts of the country. Because when you strengthen systems, thank you, I thought you would not clap there. Because when you strengthen systems, and human resource for health is one of the critical health system strengthening agenda.
Speaking at the same event, World Health Organization country representative Dr. Custodia Mandlate has commended Zambia for being one of the pioneers in implementation of expanded program on immunization EPI in the region. Dr. Mandlate has encouraged workshop participants to provide feedback on the status of the implementation of the polio endgame strategic activities in the Afro region and East and Southern African sub-region ESA.
At this point, it's important to underline the goal of the polio endgame plan as part of the polio eradication initiative. This is a global commitment that the Meseret has told you already, is to complete eradication and containment of all wild, vaccine-related and severe polioviruses, so that no child ever again suffers paralytic poliomyelitis. And we also know that the main objectives of this endgame strategy, and that's why it was stressed in a very well-articulated presentation, is include poliovirus detection and interruption, immunization system strengthened, and the OPV withdrawal. But as we also had, there is some challenges, including the IPV global shortage, containment and certification, and legacy planning. Of course, I'm talking to experts, so let me not go into much details. As you know, I'm a psychiatrist. Like many of your countries, my country of assignment, Zambia, has been one of the pioneers in the implementation of immunization program in the region. And we can now witness notable changes and progress in the program, from increased vaccine coverage, strengthened surveillance systems, to expanded number of antigens in the immunization schedule, with the rubella being the latest addition since last month.
Zambia and Morocco are set to operationalize 19 agreements signed by Morocco's King Mohammed VI, intended to foster development in the two countries. During his visit to Zambia in February this year, King Mohammed of Morocco signed 19 agreements covering various sectors of the economy, which include science, technology, industrial cooperation, agriculture, education, and mining, among others. Speaking during a cooperation review meeting in Lusaka today, Foreign Affairs Acting Permanent Secretary Sylvester Mundanda has stated that the operationalization of the 19 agreements will foster development through South-to-South cooperation for the benefit of the people of the two countries. Mr. Mundanda says this month's meeting between the two countries will provide modalities and time frames which will ensure that the agreements achieve the objective for which they were intended. He says the meetings will also highlight ways to ensure the timely, effective, and efficient implementation of the signed agreements as expected by the two heads of state.
The operationalization of the agreements will foster development and enhance in both our countries through South-South cooperation for the mutual benefits of our respective peoples. It is my sincere hope that this meeting will agree on specific activities, modalities, and time frame that will ensure that the agreements achieve the objective for which they were intended for. Let us utilize this opportunity to chart a way forward that will ensure the timely, effective, and efficient implementation of the signed agreements as expected by our respective heads of state. I have noted that our two countries signed a number of agreements during the visit of His Majesty the King of Morocco. In this regard, there is need to put the agreements in one framework that provides monitoring and evaluation of their implementation. The General Agreement on Economic, Scientific, Technical, and Cultural Cooperation for review of agreed areas of cooperation.
And Morocco's State Minister for Foreign Affairs, Monia Bosset, says the 19 bilateral agreements have been signed in order to pursue a strategic alignment and an ambitious South-to-South cooperation through partnership in many areas. She says Zambia, as a potential gateway to the Southern African region, share with Morocco a common vision and will to establish peace, stability, and respect for state sovereignty and democracy.
In
different fields of mutual interest. The attachment of the kingdom to its continent emanates from a deep conviction in the future of Africa. Morocco is Afro-optimistic but also Afro-voluntarist. We wish to see a proud Africa emerge, determined to take change. As we all know, the kingdom has always carried on the noble causes of our continent and defended them with conviction in the international forum. We are also all aware that our continent is changing rapidly and that Africa have to trust Africa to be able to surpass itself and continue its momentum. Threats are numerous, but Morocco and Zambia can play a pivotal role in the continent to bring Africa into the area of stability, prosperity, peace.
The Zambia Medicines Regulatory Authority, ZAMRA, has described as alarming the high levels of drugs pilferage in both private and public health institutions. ZAMRA Public Relations Officer Ludovic Mape tells QTV News that there has been an increase in the pilferage of drugs which are ending up in wrong hands on the streets. Mr. Mape says it is unfortunate that unregulated drugs such as codeine and berylline are being abused by members of the public, especially bus drivers, with a view of getting intoxicated. He says members of the public should not assume that such drugs are alcoholic beverages, as they only contain diminutive quantities of alcohol for preservative purposes and not for intoxication. He explains that what gets those taking these drugs intoxicated are the combined elements of the drugs and not the actual alcohol. Mr. Mape has since revealed that the authority will tighten the distribution methods of drugs in both public and private institutions to reduce the high levels of drugs pilferage. The opposition UPND has asked government to increase funding to the social sectors in a bid to reduce rural poverty levels. The opposition political party is also urging the government to honor the Maputo Declaration of allocating not less than 10% of the total national budget to the agriculture sector in the 2018 national budget. UPND Chairman for Rural Reconstruction and Development Mono Mapani says increasing funding to the agriculture sector will work well with Zambia's agenda of diversifying the country's economy. Mr. Mapani says the agriculture sector has proved that it has potential to create the much-needed jobs as well as help in eradicating poverty, more especially in rural areas. He has also called on government to ensure that it allocates substantial amounts of money to the social sectors through the Ministries of Education, Health, Gender and Community Development. Mr. Mapani says this will have a positive impact on rural communities. Zambia Export Growers Association ZEGA President Lukumbewe has called on government to amend the taxation of import duty and value-added tax in order to help the industry become competitive on the international market. Mr. Mbewe has told Q News that the export industry in Zambia has been subjected to a lot of taxes, which is not the case in other countries. He says this has resulted in Zambia being uncompetitive even against African countries like Kenya, Zimbabwe and South Africa. Mr. Mbewe states that as a result, the industry has not been recording new investment, leading to a reduction in foreign investments. He adds that the industry has in recent years recorded reduced foreign exchange earnings from 60 million United States dollars to about 25 million United States dollars per year. Mr. Mbewe has since stated that it will be prudent for government to quickly consider re-looking at issues to do with taxation for export growers before the industry collapses. The Zambia Information and Communications Technology Authority, ZICTA, has pledged its commitment to ensuring that ICT services are affordable and accessible across the country. And the authority says it is in the process of coming up with regulations that will compel service providers to offer affordable and cost-reflective tariffs. Speaking during the USAID Digital Development Forum in Lusaka today, ZICTA Acting Director General Patrick Mutumushi says government is in the process of coming up with a national broadband strategy aimed at enhancing access and usage of internet services around the country. Mr. Mutumushi adds that the authority is coming up with various initiatives aimed at making ICT devices affordable and accessible, especially to the rural communities. He has further stated that the authority is scaling up initiatives that will enhance capacity in the quality of internet services made available to the people by various service providers.
And it will continue to upgrade its regulatory tools aimed at enhancing its capacity to enforce quality of service. We've also noticed that quality of service also is not just about providers, but also end-user terminal devices that are used to access these devices. So ZICTA, together with the government, intends to scale up its type approval efforts aimed at mitigating any risks related to use of concrete devices. This will be done through new regulatory tools, such as the Consolidated Information Regulatory System, as well as the establishment of a type approval about the gate in Lusaka. Ladies and gentlemen, the authority is equally committed to ensuring the user of devices access the services at affordable prices, while affordability relates to both the income endowments as well as prevailing price levels in the market. ZICTA will continue to implement various initiatives aimed at ensuring that operators offer services at cost-effective tariffs. This will be done through soon-to-be-issued tariff regulations aimed at enhancing the authority's capacity to ensure cost-effective tariffs. As you may be aware, the government, through the Ministry of Transport and Communication, recently approved a new licensing framework for the ICT sector aimed at deepening competition. We have a study done by the World Zambia ICT governance. One of the issues that this analysis.
And USAID Zambia Acting Deputy Mission Director Zdenek Suda has called for an open development approach in addressing developmental challenges to ICT accessibility around the country.
Other things that are a little bit less dramatic technologically, but are very important, for example, automated text messages to alert mothers that about scheduled antenatal and postnatal appointments at their local health facility. Electronic vouchers for distributing microloans or credits for agricultural inputs for farmers. Use of drones to combat wildlife poaching, and also to deliver medicines occasionally to remote areas. There's some pilot work being done there. And of course, for development agencies, for example, such as USAID, be able to pay partners who work in remote areas by using mobile money and avoiding security challenges like that. So, in addition to these technological advances, there's been a transformative effect to the development.
The Council of Churches in Zambia, CCZ, has announced the appointment of Father Emmanuel Chikoya as its new General Secretary effective the 1st of August 2017. CCZ President Bishop Dr. Alfred Kalembo says Father Chikoya brings to the organization valuable ecumenical and interfaith experience that has enabled him to have a broader view and grasp of issues. Until his appointment, Father Chikoya, who holds a master's degree in theology, was a resident city canon at the Anglican Cathedral of the Holy Cross in Lusaka. Ordained to the diaconate in 2001 to priesthood in 2002, Father Chikoya was seconded to the Council of Churches in Zambia in 2004, where he served as the ecumenical chaplain from 2004 to 2006. He takes over from Reverend Suzanne Matale, who has retired after serving for 10 years. To end QTV 10 p.m. news, the headlines. The Law Association of Zambia LAZ says any powers exercised by government under Article 31 must be used in accordance with the Bill of Rights. The Evangelical Fellowship of Zambia EFZ says the church is willing to facilitate political dialogue in the country. That's all we have for news. Be sure to join us for more news. My name is Jeffrey Ziambo. Bye-bye.